So they got like these green bags now, which of course, if you got to pick something off the floor, you put your hand in there and put it there. But kind of remember like what they do beforehand, like the 90s or the 80s. Like I remember the 80s, you just leave it there. Why would you touch it? Just leave it. Welcome to Section 420, Talkin Yankees. Well, the Yankees will honor CC Sabathia by retiring his number later this season and enshrine him in Monument Park, which, yes, we all love CC Sabathia, but it's a decision I disagree with, so I'll lay out my whole case. Again, not disparaging CC there, but I do not think he, has the smell test of a retired Yankee number. But again, I'll give you my whole argument for that. But of course, more importantly, on the field, Giancarlo Stanton taking a big step, actually getting on the field, hitting a baseball. Now, he can't open a bag of chips, he can't open a bottle, but he can still hit a baseball, so that's a good news, but we'll kind of get into that backstory. And of course, Cashman always, tinkering around the roster, bringing in Randall Grichuk off the scrap heap there. Yeah, who's he? I know, but he's been bounced around baseball a little bit, not too familiar with him. I'll kind of give you the backstory of him, possible option for the outfield of the Yankees, so I'll kind of give that bio there. But again, this is going to be the very heavy on CC Sabathia focus there, so strap yourself in. But before we get started, make sure you subscribe to the audio podcast version of the show, Section 420 Talkin Yankees, wherever you get your favorite podcast. And of course, if you're watching on YouTube or TV, go to YouTube, search for Section 420 Talkin Yankees, subscribe there as well. We got the whole spring ahead of us, and before you know it, we'll be playing baseball, but you want to be fully loaded, so subscribe to it all. So CC Sabathia, who came to the Yankees in 2009, was here for 11 seasons. Of course, gave us a World Series there, but and gave us really 3 good seasons up front. Rest of the way there, kind of got lost in the middle there, kind of recovered toward the late there. But you kind of look at his whole career there. You put him up there where you think of retiring his number. I just don't see that there, and I'll kind of lay out the whole case for you. But again, as I mentioned before, I'm not like disparaging CC. I don't think he's good. I mean, again, I was happy when they signed him. I was always excited to watch his games. In fact, I still have his Yankee Stadium cup from over a decade ago, which I still keep there. So I did like CC's there. But again, if we're gonna be honest here about retiring the Yankees numbers, we have to have some sort of prerequisite, not just let people in just because it makes you feel good or something like that. And whatever CC time here with the Yankees, I just felt the whole body of work. If you want to look at it all together, I don't think there's enough there till you'd want to retire his number. Now, it's kind of a bit of an obscure number, 52, so I figure if you're retired, who cares? It's not like something like number 5 or number 10, you want to make sure you really retire someone who really deserves that. So who's going to want 52? Not so many people are going to want 52, so if you're retired anyway, what's the difference? But still, this should be something special about the retired Yankees number. And I got to make a little other argument there. I'm not going too many different directions at once there, but you just see what's been going on with the organization lately. Obviously, last season they lifted the facial hair, requirement thing where now you can grow beards and mustaches there. And this whole idea of this kind of the Yankees, front office maybe just being satisfied with mediocrity, and it's not the same as the championship or bust, kind of like the Dodgers are like that right now with the Yankees. They seem kind of content with sort of mediocrity, and that's why you're taking something like CC Sabathia, who was really, you would see on the borderline of retiring his number and just going ahead with that. So yeah, let's retire his number. Where years ago you wouldn't even think about that because he wasn't part of enough championships to even consider that, or enough success, personal success in the Yankee uniform to consider that. But again, this new age, this kind of current Yankee regime seems to be content with that type of stuff. But let I digress, get into all that stuff there. Sabathia will be the 23rd number retired for the Yankees. Now, interesting little backstory to that. CC Sabathia originally wanted May 2nd, 5-2, 5th month, 2nd day. The Yankees couldn't accommodate that, so that the second one was September 26th. So this event will take place on September 26th, a game against the Orioles. And of course, with that is the 26th of September, the date of 26, and the year 2026. So add 2026 and 26, you get 52. So that was Sabathia's plan B for this one. So it will be on September 26th there, where it should still be decent. But overall, again, I'm totally against this thing. I just think if you're going to retire someone's number, especially in the Yankee uniform, it has to be like the specials, the best of the best. And I know lately, it's been getting watered down a little bit with the Jorge Posada and O'Neill's 21 and Andy Pettitte 46 and Bernie Williams a little bit like that. Yeah, they were really good Yankees, but were they greats like Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris and Bill Dickens like that? Where you would retire those guys, but it's kind of getting watered down a little bit. I can understand that argument, and I'm going to lay that out on the second half there as well there. But let's just jump into CC Sabathia. And of course, just freshly inducted into the Hall of Fame, which I totally agree with. I think he was one of the best pitchers of the era, and he's got enough numbers to do it. Obviously, in this day and age, you're not going to have a 300 winner anymore. It's just the game's different the way they baby these starting pitches. But look at his career: 251 wins over 161 losses, so it's 90 games over 500. ERA of 3.74, a little on the higher side, but again, he kind of pitched in a bit of a different era now, a little bit of that steroid era as well. I mean, Sabathia came up in the year 2000, so again, he pitched, 8 years before the Mitchell report came out there, so you kind of have to take that into consideration a little bit. 3,993 strikeouts, so over 3,000 strikeouts, that's usually a good smell test there, and has won Cy Young Award, that was 2007 with Cleveland, who were the Indians at the time, and made it to the All-Star 3 times with the Indians and 3 times with the Yankees. Now, I want to see what he did in a Yankee uniform. He was in a Yankee uniform for 11 seasons, went 134 over 88, so it's about 50 games over 500, okay. ERA a little higher than his career average there, 3.81, and of course he had a couple of really bad seasons there stacked in the middle, which we'll get into, and of course gave us the World Series, part of the World Series team in 2009, and was an All-Star in the Yankee uniform 3 times. So it was an All-Star 3 times with the Yankees and 3 times with the Indians. But again, just went to 1 World Series visit and was part of 1 World Series championship early on, and that's it. So I think that's kind of more the crux there, that this wasn't enough winning and championship stuff, as he was kind of the de facto ace or pitching on the Yankee staff. Can't totally blame him for that one. It's kind of the timing there. But again, we're kind of just celebrating that 2009 championship there, which is almost a little pathetic. I mean, that was 16 years ago, and it's like this organization is like grasping for straws to find things to celebrate and have an event in the season, and you got to pull out Sabathia there. They kind of went through the 90s Yankees, and that's where you got the 20 and the 21 and 51 and the 46 retired there. It's like, all right, let's look at what do we got next? The 2009 team. Well, you already retired Jeter and the core 4, and like, all right, well, we could grab Sabathia, and that's what I kind of feel it is anyway. But we'll get into Sabathia's numbers now. His first 3 seasons with the Yankees were great. You would say, yes, he was an elite pitcher. Obviously, after what he did with the Brewers, became a free agent. The Yankees signed him, bought him in there. And it's kind of thing, too. You kind of bought the guy. It's not like he came through your system, but I won't go too crazy there. But, of course, the first season with the Yankees, 2009, went 19-8 with a 3.37 ERA. Again, that's ace type of stuff. The Yankees needed an ace at the time. He was at ace. They bought him in there. Again, he had a good first season with the Yankees. Now, also padded up a little bit. They also bought him A.J. Burnett. They bought him Mark Teixeira. Obviously made the trade for Nick Swisher. Of course, he still had Pettit there. But, of course, you look at the 2009 season, you have to almost look at A-Rod as the reason that they won that World Championship. A-Rod literally carried the Yankees through that postseason with just some unbelievable dramatic home runs, kind of make up for all the faults he had in the previous postseason for the Yankees. Whatever debt he owed there, he definitely gave it up with some big major moments in 2009. So, yeah, even though Sabathia was the ace of the team during that 2009 championship, you almost got to really point that A-Rod willed that team more to that championship more than CC Sabathia did. In fact, CC Sabathia lost Game 1, dropped Game 1 to Cliff Lee there, and the Yankees went a 1-0 hole in that World Series. But again, I don't want to go too crazy off the rails with that one. Second season, 2010, just as good, 21-7 with a 3.18 ERA. Now that 2010 Yankee team should have repeated, and of course, you may want to blame that more on Brian Cashman, not wanting to let Ivan Nova go. And of course, Cliff Lee ends up going to the Texas Rangers instead. If the Yankees get Cliff Lee, you can almost guarantee they repeat in 2010. But again, you can't really say woulda, coulda, shoulda. And if Sabathia had 2 championships, maybe I'd feel more comfortable with it. But still, there's 1 trip to the World Series and 1 championship, and that's it. But let's move on from there. 2011, probably his last really called elite season, 19-8 with an even 3 ERA. So 3 up front, he gave you 3 really great seasons. Then after that, 2012, dipped a little bit, and that's still, I would say, very good, but not elite anymore. 15-6 with a 3.38 ERA. But with that, I would say his probably his best Yankee moment, or I guess his signature Yankee moment, was the American League Division Series. That was Game 5. The series was tied 2-2 at Yankee Stadium, and Sabathia went a complete 9 innings for a 3-1 win against the Orioles. Actually, it was there for that game. That was probably Sabathia's best moment as a Yankee, and okay, that was great. You won a big Game 5 playoff for the team to move on, but the team didn't do anything after that. They got wiped out against the Detroit Tigers in the next series. So even though it was a good moment in for that ALDS Game 5 there, the team didn't go anywhere after that there. So kind of, even though it was a good moment, it meant nothing. It's not like that took the Yankees on a path to a championship. And that was probably, again, Sabathia's probably climax best moment as a Yankee there. So, you're going to retire the number for that. I don't see it. And then unfortunately from there, things took a bad turn for CC Sabathia. 2013 went 14-13, so just one game over 500, and double-digit losses, and the ERA sparked up to 4.78. 2014 was an absolute wasted year for CC Sabathia. Was hurt. That's when he started having the knee problems. Went 3-4. So now you look at single-digit wins. They had 3-4 with a 5.28 ERA, and they had to shut him down early in that season. Obviously, getting his knee scoped because he was just having an issue there. So okay, so you get injured. It happens there. But unfortunately, again, this was a bit of a bad downward spiral for CC Sabathia. His second half in the Yankee, the second half of his tenure in the Yankee uniform was not good at all numbers-wise. 2015 comes back, goes 6-10. So now you look at, again, single-digit wins and only 6 wins and 10 losses. So 4 games under 500 with a 4.73 ERA. So it's an ERA just about 5 again, far from elite, far from what he was doing his first 3 seasons in the Yankee uniform. 2016, not that much better, 9-12. So again, single-digit wins. I mean, this is supposed to be a starting pitcher, not a reliever, but he's only getting single-digit wins in 9-12, 3 games under 500 with a 3.91 ERA. Okay, got the ERA under 4, good, but still, you look at the win-loss record there, not elite at all, not even close to it. Now, 2017 was he had a really good comeback. That's kind of when we worked with Andy Pettit a little bit. Obviously, he lost the fastball at this point, kind of been more of a soft pitcher, kind of being more of a finesse pitcher there. And again, did transform himself, and again, had a good, this is probably his final good season. That'll be, he went 14-5, so that's more like, more accommodable there, and with 3.69 ERA. 2018, 9-7. Now, again, the ERA was good at 3.65, but again, 9-7. Again, single-digit wins as a starter there. I mean, again, that's far from ace-like elite type of stuff there. And then 2019 was his final season in the Yankee uniform. Again, lost some time of being hurt and ineffective there. 5-8. So again, single-digit wins. ERA 4.95. So ERA of 5 there. So again, up front there, you had 3 elite seasons up front there. 2, you would say very good seasons. That would be the 2012 season and 2017 season. But then you got 6 seasons that were just flat out bad or mediocre, and that's just being kind there. So I just don't think all that together, and the fact that that whole run, you just got 1 trip to the World Series and 1 ring there, is like you would say this guy, well, we got to retire this number. And there's some off the field stuff too. The leader, team elder, he pitched with passion and stuff. Yeah, maybe consider those factors in too, which we'll get into a little bit as well there. But if you want to just take the raw numbers there, I guess I just don't see enough where you would want to retire this guy, that he did something great in the Yankee uniform or brought championships and brought stuff to the Yankees, that you got to retire this number. Don't see it there. And of course, mentioned before, he does have a Cy Young award, which I think counts, but he did that in the Cleveland uniform, not the Yankee uniform. And if you want to also look, one of the selling points of this thing as well, he got his 3,000 strikeout in the Yankee uniform. Okay, but more than half the strikeouts from the Yankees, if you look at those 3,000 strikeouts, like half of those were, again, in the Cleveland or Milwaukee Brewers uniform, not in the Yankee uniform. So, yeah, he had that moment in the Yankee uniform, but, only half of those strikeouts came, a little bit more than half were in the Yankee uniform. He did, the other half of those strikeouts were elsewhere. So that is a selling point. I just don't think it passes, the must there. And if you want to compare it to some other players, the Yankees were, compares apples and oranges to some other Yankee retired numbers, look to a similar type of pitcher, a lefty pitcher, like, for example, Ron Guidry, for example. Now, man to man, they're both pitchers at their best. Maybe with Sabathia better than Ron Guidry, maybe. Some people would at least argue the other way. But look at Ron Guidry's career, his resume, why you would at least consider Ron Guidry retiring his numbers. First of all, played 14 seasons, and all of those 14 seasons were in the Yankee uniform. Had 4. It was part of a team that went to 4 different trips to the World Series. When obviously the Yankees won 2 of those 4 there, so got you 4 trips to the World Series and got you 2 rings. Obviously, he won his Cy Young Award in the Yankee uniform. That was his great season ahead. Was also the Major League Player of the Year in the Yankee uniform, 4-time All-Star, and 5 times Gold Glove. So, you look at that, all that resume, all that done in the Yankee uniform, yes, it makes much more sense putting Ron Guidry in versus CC Sabathia. Now, Sabathia better pitching than Guidry, again, head-to-head. I don't know, some people might say CC, some people might say Ron Guidry. All depends how you want to look at it there. But at least Ron Guidry, what he did in the Yankee uniform, being part of championship teams, getting a Cy Young on the Yankee uniform, and of course Gold Gloves and All-Star appearances, all like that, and of course 1 Major League Player of the Year award as well. All doing that in the Yankee uniform, where it makes sense. Yes, you would retire Ron Guidry. His body work much more impressive than CC Sabathia. And again, if you want to look at some of the other Yankees have been retired lately, because you've been hearing that sort of argument that it's been watered down a little bit. Of course, you go to Jorge Posada's number 20. It's like, all right, Jorge Posada was number 20, but he spent 17 seasons in a Yankee uniform. That's like that's almost 2 decades in the Yankee uniform. And, for a while, he kind of got outshined a little bit by Pudge Rodriguez, but he was always considered like maybe the second best catcher in the American League. I know his defensive skills weren't even close to Pudge there, but it was always, around the All-Star time, it was always like him and Pudge always in the All-Star game. So, yeah, it was kind of overshadowed by Pudge. But again, he was kind of a substantial catcher on the Major League level for quite some time there. And it was only maybe those final 2 seasons where his skill started to erode a little bit, and eventually he had to become a DH. But nevertheless, held his, again, 17 seasons in the Yankee uniform, went to 7 different, part of a team that went to 7 different World Series, and he himself got 5 rings. So just looked at the fact that maybe, as a head-to-head, is CC Sabathia a better player than Jorge Posada was? Yeah, probably. But again, 5 World Series rings there. That carries a lot of weight. If you want to look at some of the other Yankees, like Andy Pettitte, 15 seasons in a Yankee uniform, 7 trips to the World Series as well, 5 rings. So, even though the players individually might be watered down, but look what they gave to the organization. It was part of that special 90s, early, 90s Joe Torre team by the late 90s, and of course came back again in 2009. But giving a lot to the organization, giving them 5 rings. So, maybe he's not a Hall of Fame player, but gave this organization 5 rings, something special. And of course, we all know Andy Pettitte's postseason resume is almost second to none there. Nevertheless, a lot of big games there. And same thing with O'Neill. Again, you can say, well, O'Neill wasn't here long enough. He didn't really put up some great numbers there. Okay, but still, he was part of a team that went to 5 different World Series, winning 4 rings. And really, for all these guys I'm going to mention here, if Mariano Rivera didn't spit the bit in Game 7 against the Arizona Diamondbacks, you could almost add a ring to all these guys there. But I won't go too crazy off the grid there. But so you look at O'Neill, he's not a Hall of Fame player, but again, he was part of a special. He was the number 3 hitter during that whole run, the number 3 hitter in that Yankee lineup. And again, but got you 4 World Series rings. And of course, he got you also the batting title in 1994. So at least he had some personal accolades he did in the Yankee uniform. And last but not least, of course, Bernie Williams, same thing. 16 seasons in the Yankee uniform. And part of the whole ride there was the center fielder for most of the part. I know by 2005, they had to switch Bernie to left field there because obviously his arm and range started to go a little bit. They had to put Matsui there at center. But nevertheless, again, Bernie Williams was the center fielder for the New York Yankees for the better part of 16 seasons and part of all those world championships. And Bernie himself, a couple of, obviously he's got the Silver Slugger Award, a batting title himself, 4 Gold Gloves, and over 2,300 hits, all in the Yankee uniform there. So he gave you a lot of body work there. So again, maybe he's not Ken Griffey Jr. He was always kind of overshadowed by Ken Griffey Jr. the same way maybe Posada was always overshadowed by Pudge Rodriguez. But still, you would always consider him one of the top center fielders in the American League during his era there. And again, doing that all in the Yankee uniform and been part of that special team that got you a dynasty. Now, the Dodgers might be on the cusp of that right now. We'll see how the rest of the season goes out there. But that's something you're not 4 championships in 5 years. That's just something you're probably not going to see in baseball, probably ever again for a very long time. And those guys I kind of mentioned were kind of all the cornerstone pieces of that. So some degree you could say it's watered down a little bit, but when someone brings you like 5 rings and you're kind of one of the main horses that brought you those rings, you kind of pass the muster to get you in there. And you could look at some other ones too, like Reggie Jackson, for example. You may say, well, he was only here for 5 seasons, but come on, this is Reggie Jackson, this is Mr. October. 3 trips to the World Series. I know he was hurt in the 81 one, but you look at the back-to-back 77 and 78, and of course the iconic 3 home run game in Game 6 and 77. That meant not only the great Yankee moment, but great famous baseball moment there. And Reggie Jackson, Mr. October, kind of a larger-than-life figure, kind of the guy that's bigger than the game, almost like that. Again, that would, even though he was over the Yankees for 5 seasons there, but that was a real special thing he did there, brought to the organization, brought to the fan base there, and again, got you 2 World Series rings, not just 1, and multiple trips to the World Series there. So at least that could at least understandably get him in. And of course, last but not least, of course, the Don Mattingly, you can make the argument, well, Don Mattingly only got to the playoffs once in 95, and they lost in the divisional series. Okay, but come on, Don Mattingly, he was the face of the organization for over a decade, and he, of course, during the 80s, there from like 84 to 89, he gave you like 5 or 6 unbelievable seasons in a row. Of course, the batting title, the MVP in '85 there, 9 Gold Gloves. He was Donnie Baseball. So, yeah, he didn't have the postseason success, unfortunately, of a Jeter or a Posada or Bernie Williams. Came up through a bad time there, but, he was the face of the Yankee. He was the Yankee captain there during that time. He was the face of the organization for a long time. Even to this day, he's probably one of the most celebrated, when he comes as an opposing manager or coach there, fans still cheer his name there. So, he doesn't have a World Series ring there, but come on, he's Donnie Baseball. So, that kind of triumphs over some other matters there. So, hey, if you just look at CC Sabathia career, so to kind of break it down there, I just don't think he has enough there that you want to consider retiring his number. There's no exact formula there. But for me personally, I say, look, it should be a couple things. It should be like the players, personal, the accomplishments they had in the Yankee uniform, that should be one. What they meant to the fan base and what they meant to the organization. And if you look at the whole thing there, even though CC Sabathia is the one championship there, I just don't think there's enough that he gave you that you would want to consider retiring his number. It's like, wow, this was so great. We can't even consider giving this number 52 to anyone else there. I'm not disparaging CC. I don't like him there, but when you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seasons where you only got single-digit wins, that's something like a middle reliever get. You're supposed to be a starting pitcher. And, of course, he just had some real just bad seasons there toward the end. And I know, he was a fiery guy who pumped his fists coming off the mound there. And because we know the incident in his last season there, obviously he could have gotten a $250,000 bonus there by a certain number of innings pitched there. But, the Yankees in Tampa Bay were trading bean balls. He beans a guy, gets thrown out of the game there. It's kind of, he did that versus worrying about his money. The Yankees gave him the money anyway afterwards. But I know little things like that. You like CC Sabathia, but I just don't think he was that, like warrior enough, like kind of Paul Neal warrior, where you want to consider him just because he doesn't have all the accolades there. So, and another problem I thought that too there, it kind of opens Pandora's box in terms of if you're going to consider him for this, well, you got to consider some other players, and I'll just throw some situations out there. Not that it'll ever happen, but let's take Roger Clemens, number 22. Now, I would never consider Roger Clemens, a quote-unquote real Yankee. I liked him, but I always see him more as a Red Sox, if anything. But if this is what you're going to qualify to retire a number, let's look at Roger Clemens right now. 4 trips to the World Series, 2 rings. His Cy Young Award he got was in a Yankee uniform in 2001. And not only that, he was part of the 2 championships, one of them beating the Mets. If the Yankees would have lost that World Series, it was a disaster. You look at that Game 2 at Yankee Stadium. People always say that the Game 4, Derek Jeter, that leadoff home run against Bobby Jones, quote-unquote, sealed the World Series. You could look at that, but you can always look a little further at that Game 2 against Roger Clemens. He come out and actually dominated the Mets, went 8+ innings. The Yankees teed off on Mike Hampton there. Obviously, we know the whole, throwing the bat at Mike Piazza because that whole incident there. But, Roger Clemens absolutely shut the Mets down in Game 2. And I think putting the Mets in a 2-0 hole, even though they were going back to Shea Stadium there, I think that kind of really set it, really put the Mets in such a deep hole there that you can almost say the World Series was won there. If let's say he had a bad game, the series is tied, the Mets like, all right, we tied it 1-1, we're going back to Queens there. Maybe they feel more confident themselves. Maybe we have a totally different story. The fact that Clemens absolutely shut that door down in Game 2 there was probably more vital than anything probably CC Sabathia did in the Yankee uniform. And one of the other selling points I mentioned earlier, they said, well, Sabathia got his 3,000 strikeout in the Yankee uniform. Well, Roger Clemens got his 300th win and his 4,000, 1,000 more strikeouts, all in the same game in the Yankee uniform. So, hey, if you're going to celebrate guys doing something special and for a landmark figure there, well, Clemens got his 300th win and his 4,000 strikeout in the same game. And I know because I was actually there in 2003. I don't know if you remember that little whole fiasco. I think the security thing. So they put in his new security system there, and people weren't able to get into the game until the 3rd inning. But nevertheless, if you wanted to just give guys accolades, Clemens did more in the Yankee uniform than Sabathia did there. So if that's what the smell test is, you should put Roger Clemens in. I'll just give you one last example, not to just beat this to death there. Let's look at number 26, El Duque. Again, wasn't in the Yankee uniform for a long amount of time, but got you 4 trips to the World Series, brought you home 3 rings. And again, his regular seasons were never that great, but what counts is most of the postseason. Had a 9-3 postseason record. And you really look at El Duque saving the Yankees bacon. That would be the 1998 championship series, Game 4 against Cleveland. Again, the Yankees were down 2-1 in the series. El Duque comes in, has a great game, ties the series at 2-2. The next day, a day game, Wells wins Game 5, and you're able to take the series back home to the Yankee Stadium where the Yankees were able to win a Game 6. If El Duque loses that Game 4, the Yankees go into 3-1 hole. They're smoked. That's done. And you would have had this 98 Yankees team, probably one of the greatest regular season teams of all time, flatten out in the playoffs there. That would have been an absolute disaster. El Duque saved that ship in Game 4 there, able to tie the series 2-2, and the Yankees would move on past Cleveland and, of course, beat, as we all know, sweep San Diego in the World Series. But again, if El Duque loses that game, the Yankees are down 3-1 in the series, they're done. And the 98 Yankees, that whole team, that's flushed down the toilet there. So you can look at El Duque saving. El Duque did more for the Yankee organization than CC Sabathia, clearly, even though he was there for only about 4 or 5 seasons there. El Duque did a ton more for the Yankees than CC Sabathia did. So that's what I'm saying there. So if you just ease up the requirements to retire a number there, you could open the door to a lot more situations. I just use a couple examples from my generation there. I'm sure you could look some guy in the 40s and 50s make an argument there, though. So they're going to celebrate it. Do I hate it? No. I just think, it's just kind of this whole new mentality, Yankees, of running it back and just being as good there, and we'll compete there in the playoffs versus the whole mindset where years ago we were putting up rings and banners and trophies and we're just celebrating the big stuff. It seems like now, because the way this organization now, they're celebrating the mediocrity. They say, well, Sabathia, you got us a championship, and he was a pretty good Yankee. The fans liked him. Let's retire the number. I just don't think it passes the smell test there, and I don't want to disparage Sabathia. I liked him. Of course, whatever. I see it come at my feet, I'll give it a like. But I just think we're really watering it down here, and I think Sabathia's 52 is there. But nevertheless, they're going to do it, so it's a good moment for him. But let's throw some other names out there. You should retire A-Rod if that's the point there, man. A-Rod got his 500 and 600 home run in the Yankee uniform, got us the 2009 championship, got 2 MVPs in the Yankee uniform. I mean, we could go on forever with so many guys that should get their retire number. If you're going to retire 52, you should be retiring 13 for A-Rod and some others there. And I could pull a bunch of these out there. I'm not going to go beat it to death there. But nevertheless, I'm totally against it. I just don't think it's good. I just don't think it's good for, there should be something special about a retired Yankees number there. Now you just start letting everyone in there, and it just kind of kills the whole thing. But nevertheless, the Yankees are going to go forward with this, and we all know what it is. It's to sell bobbleheads and T-shirts, and we need something because we haven't won anything in 16 seasons, so I get it, business-wise there. And again, I don't want to rain a Sabathia's parade there, but, all for him to be a Hall of Fame there. But to retire the Yankee number, no way. Now moving on the field, at least at this point as I'm saying this, the Yankees are 9-2 in spring, including a 11-1 win exhibition game against Team Panama. Kind of beat an international team there, but nevertheless, not that you really care too much about spring training record there. But I think that it is important to sort of take a winning attitude, at least a winning stance early on, and then kind of carry that into the regular season. Doesn't always happen, but even Joe Girardi was always about that too, like not wanting to throw away those games, actually want to get wins there, get the team high-fiving each other on the field after a game there, and kind of hoping that continues the regular season. So I think that is important. But some good news for the Yankees. Giancarlo Stanton, who was working out originally, I kind of mentioned that it was going to be that March 2nd day off, either before that or right after that, where he was going to get into a game. Finally did to get into his first game of the season, went 1 for 2, did smoke a single, and again the exit velo was there at 114.3 miles per hour, so still has the ball exploding off his bat, but also struck out in his other bat there. But he kind of was asked about his elbows there, where of course we know the whole season last year. Now the actual official diagnosis of this, if you want to keep this on your scorecard, is epicondylitis. That's the name of it. Whatever the soreness he has in elbows, he has that in both there. Doesn't sound good, and it's not something you can say 3 times fast, but nevertheless, that's what he's dealing with. And an interesting interview with NJ.com mentioned that, he could swing a baseball bat, but because of this, elbow soreness, he struggles to open up a bag of chips, or even struggles to open up a bottle there, and that's kind of been a joke online with a bunch of memes if you saw that. But nevertheless, he's on the field playing games, and he kind of mentioned he's just going to have to deal with this for the rest of his career there, so I don't know why there's no procedure to really get this fixed there. Maybe it's just so bad that it completely shuts you down from like 2 seasons there, so you just rather play through the pain. So he's going to be playing through the pain, it seems like, but at least he's here, he's doing it on the field in a uniform. Last season we didn't even have him until like June, July there, so I'll take that as a positive. And another interesting note, did mention previously we were kind of talking about Ryan McMahon's hitting. He was actually also taking some grounders at shortstop. We were kind of, why was he doing that? The Yankees kind of mentioned they wanted him as an option at shortstop. What do you really mean by that? Well, actually got into a game playing the shortstop position, did boot a ball there, but it looks like the Yankees want to release that with Volpe on the shelf a little bit, have McMahon play some shortstop, which then would open up a roster spot for them. Maybe you have Rosario play third base if you have McMahon playing shortstop, and maybe it opens up a room. Seemingly the Yankees want to add another outfielder, which we'll kind of get with a GRIC in a moment there, but it all kind of makes sense because it looks like Jason Dominguez going to go to AAA there, so at least they want a right-handed bat for the outfield. They're going to offset that, so the games that Trent Grisham has to face a lefty, which he's 184 against, they want a competent right-handed bat, so they want to make the move there. So it looks like McMahon will probably get a lot of time than we thought at shortstop. And last but not least, the Yankees signing veteran Randal Grichuk, the 34-year-old, to a minor league deal, inviting him to a camp. Now, of course, he's mainly going to be an outfield option for the Yankees. I mean, his batting isn't a great last season, split between Kansas City and Arizona, 228, 9 home runs, 27 RBIs in 113 games. Did have a 674 OPS that probably caught Cashman's eye, but more importantly, he could play all outfield positions. So another one, like sort of like Paulie Young, the Yankees throwing in the mix there. Even if he makes a team, probably within a couple weeks, someone comes back from injury, he'll be at DFA, so we'll see what happens to him. But until now, he's a New York Yankee.